Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Malia Hampton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Phil Bywaters. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families who love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private William Ethelbert Abbott. William Abbott was born around 1882 in Enniskillen, Ireland, one of two children born to Reverend John Thomas and Phoebe Abbott. At some point in his early life, he was adopted by the Reverend John and Mary Knox, also of Enniskillen. In 1910, Abbott, now 27 years old, was living in Blackline, County Enniskillen, when he decided to emigrate to Australia. After arriving in Sydney, he went to live with Mary Knox and her family, who he had known in Ireland. By the time the First World War began, Abbott had moved to the Solomon Islands, where he was working as a planter and overseer. He returned to Sydney and enlisted for service in the Australian Imperial Force at Liverpool on the 17th of May 1915. Joining the newly raised 20th Battalion, Abbott was allotted to D Company. After initial training, on the 26th of June, Abbott and the 20th Battalion embarked from Sydney on board the transport ship Berrima, bound for Egypt. After a brief stop, the 20th Battalion was sent on to Gallipoli, arriving in the early hours of the 22nd of August. The sounds of war would have been audible for quite a distance, and charnel smell of the peninsula, which could be smelled up to a mile offshore, would have quieted even the most ardent joker. Abbott and his comrades did not have to wait long to see action. With the August offensive in its final stages, the 20th Battalion and other battalions of the 5th Brigade were committed to the Battle of Hill 60. From September until the end of the Gallipoli campaign in December, the 20th Battalion rotated from Russell's Top to the support areas. On the 13th of December, a week before the evacuation of the Gallipoli Peninsula, Ottoman artillery pounded the Australian positions around Russell's Top. During the bombardment, one officer was killed and Abbott was wounded in the head by shrapnel. He was evacuated to Egypt, where he was admitted to the No. 1 Auxiliary Hospital in Heliopolis. His wound was not severe, and on the 16th of January 1916, he rejoined his battalion, which had returned to Egypt. Over the next 2 months, the AIF in Egypt expanded from 2 to 4 divisions, all of which were brought up to strength with reinforcements from Australia. In mid-March, Abbott sailed for France with his battalion, landing at Marseille a week later. The 20th Battalion was then sent up to the nursery sector near Armentières and went into the front line for the first time in the Bridoux salient. The 20th Battalion was the first Australian unit to come face-to-face with the Germans at the front. On the night of the 5th of May, German troops conducted a trench raid on the battalion's positions. The Germans had shelled the Australian trenches for several hours before launching the raid. The 20th Battalion's casualties were heavy, with 23 men killed, 72 wounded, and 13 missing in action. The battalion was sent south to the Somme in July, and on the 23rd of July, Abbott was transferred to the 5th Machine Gun Company. Over the next 18 months, he saw action at Pozières, Bullecourt, and during the Ypres campaign. In February 1918, he was granted leave to England. It appears that he overstayed his leave by several days. After returning to his unit in early March, he was charged with being absent without leave. He was awarded 28 days field punishment number 2 and fined 32 days pay. The same month, the 5th Machine Gun Company was incorporated into the 2nd Machine Gun Battalion. At the end of March, Abbott took part in stemming the German spring offensive on the Somme. Then, in August, was part of the Allied offensive that would bring about Germany's defeat on the Western Front. On the morning of the 3rd of October, Abbott's 5th Machine Gun Company was involved in supporting the attack by the 5th and 7th Brigades on the Beauvoir line near the town of Estrees. During the attack, Abbott's company was hit by shell fire. Casualties were light, with 1 officer wounded and 1 man killed. That man was Abbott. He had been struck by shrapnel and killed instantly. He was 35 years old. In a further cruel twist, it was the last action fought by Abbott's units, as they were withdrawn from the line immediately and saw no further action in the war. Abbott's body was laid to rest in the Prospect Hill Cemetery at Goy. After the war, his name was added to Enniskillen War Memorial in his old hometown. 2 of his stepbrothers also served during the First World War. Private Charles William Knox, serving with the 29th Battalion, was killed at Polygon Wood on the 29th of September 1917. He was 22 years old. Trooper Arthur Stewart Knox served with the 12th Light Horse in the Sinai Palestine campaign. He was returned to Australia in 1918 after being kicked in the face by a horse. He survived the war but died in 1925. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private William Ethelbert Abbott, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.